What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to episode 46 of the U.S.S. Enterprise D tutorial. I'm Zero Elite, and I just want to thank you very much for tuning in today's episode. If you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. And today's kind of a special day, so just want to throw a shout out. Happy Star Trek Day, September the 8th to everybody. And as you can see, I'm getting ready to do something just a little bit special for everybody for Star Trek Day. This is currently where I am at on the Enterprise D. And we're not going to be doing a full tour, but you'll be able to see what you can see at this point. And we're going to be making our way to the bridge. And from there, we'll be hopping right into today's episode. But wanted just to do something a little bit cool for Star Trek Day. And I thought this would be really neat because now you're seeing stuff that I really haven't shown on the channel at all whatsoever. So you see the area we're getting ready to work on today, or that we started yesterday, the main shuttle bay. Now we're going into the secondary, and we're going to make our way down main corridors. Eventually hit the bridge here in just a second. Like I said, we're not really going to be doing a full tour or anything like that today. We'll save that for towards the end of the tutorial. But yeah, there's some pretty cool stuff here that we're going to be getting into. And also keep in mind, a lot of this actually is not done yet. There's a reason why I've been looking at it, and going in specifically down that main hallway so you can see most of the ship that's been completed thus far. Anyway, here we are at the bridge, and so it looks pretty good. I kind of went off of a mix between the Generations bridge and the older bridge design from Star Trek The Next Generation, and just kind of merged them together to come up with this. And that's why you have the computer consoles going along the sides, because that's a contribution from the next Star Trek Generations. But yeah, we'll be getting into all this here shortly in the not too distant future, but just wanted to throw a quick teaser out there and do something special for Star Trek Day. So I hope everybody enjoyed that quick teaser of things to come. Anyway, we're going to be getting right into today's episode because we do kind of have a 23-minute episode, so that little bit in the beginning is going to stretch it out just a little bit. But today we're going to be working on our circular corridors, and you're going to want to go on YouTube, or not YouTube, excuse me, Google, and go to your pixel circle generator, and we're going to do 200 by 122. To be honest with you, I probably should have made that 201 by 122 to give us a center, because you notice on here that we don't have a center, but don't worry about that. So you could probably see here on the sides, I've done some stuff on here as I'm trying to change up just a little bit on how I do this and having actual guiding points. So from the center going back, they're going to count back to 61. That's going to be a starting point. And then on sides, you're going to count out 100. So I've already taken the liberty of doing that for you. Hardest thing you're going to have to do is split up your dead centers, which I'm actually going to do for you right here too as well. So really, you won't have any hard things to deal with today. Should be pretty smooth sailing. See, we're just doing 6 aside on the left and right. Then we're going to hop over to the right side and repeat the same process. Now this oval that we're adding today is actually very important, because this oval is going to double for not only our corridors, but also the main phaser array that's on the top portion of the saucer section. And I'm going to start the front and back. And we did 12 on that side. Let's double check. I think that ended up being 13. it was 13 aside on front and back. All right. So now you should have something that looks like this. Now your build, you don't need to build out 61 and the 100. I just did that for visuals. And I think more than likely, as I'm going forward, I'm doing stuff like this. I'm going to have that in my videos just to help people out just a little bit more that are maybe having trouble doing their circles and things like that. Because, you know, I'm still kind of relatively new to doing these tutorials. I really only have done a couple of these. And while something might make sense to me, it may not make sense to everybody else. So I'm trying to really think of ways that I can build these ships in a visual way that people can see, and it becomes just a little bit easier. So if you have any other suggestions, be sure to drop a comment below. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Definitely love to hear from everybody. But yeah, we're definitely just going to be building out this oval, not doing anything too crazy. But that's pretty much going to take up the focus of today's episode, because I'm just going to build this out live, because I know in the past some people have had issues with building out these ovals. So really trying to do all of this live as much as I can. I think the only thing that we've done so far where we haven't done something out entirely live, showing everything I've done from beginning to end, was when we were layering the saucer section. I only showed portions of that. And even that, I thought it was worth trying, but I don't necessarily know that if I did another ship this size, if I would do it in the same way again. More than likely, I probably wouldn't. I'm going to try to figure out a way, if I ever do another ship this big, to try to speed up the video a little bit, so this way I don't have to necessarily worry about that. Yeah, some of you may be aware of it, but today there's actually going to be a panel. If you go on StarTrek.com, I think you can actually watch it. It's going to be airing today at 5 p.m. PST, and I believe that's 8 p.m. EST. I'm only going to catch a portion of it, probably the first half hour of it tonight. Hopefully they show us some stuff, and maybe we get a glimpse of what this new Star Trek movie is going to be that they've been talking about, that they have the script for. Funny enough, when I went on TrekMovie.com today, I saw there was an article of William Shatner talking about maybe reprising the role of Captain Kirk, and thinking about a way that they could do that. But he did say in the interview also that he hasn't talked to the studio. But I think that would be something that would be pretty cool. I think that after everything's been said and done, I would like to see Captain Kirk, the original Captain Kirk, one more time in a movie. I think it would be a shame if he didn't reprise the role at least once more, especially while he's still alive. And I mean, William Shatner, he's not getting any younger. The guy's 90, and it's kind of shocking too, because I mean, he's still in pretty good shape. I was watching Shark Week with my girlfriend this week, and he had a panel, and he went diving with sharks and stuff, and I couldn't believe it. The guy was 90 doing stuff like that. So I mean, I definitely think that he has it in him to at least do one more movie, and it would be pretty cool to see. I would actually really, if I had it, perfect scenario would be for him to be in the Kelvin timeline, to be in one of those movies somehow. I don't know how they could bring him back because Prime Kirk died, but that's the great thing about science fiction. There's always ways that you can get around that, and I hope that they do something with it. Anyway, besides my fan fiction on things I'd like to see, I know that they also have the trailer for Strange New Worlds that's hopefully going to be airing today. I know that they have a panel for it, so I'm really looking forward to that. I think that's probably the thing I'm looking forward to the most out of everything today, because they're probably not going to be showing anything new for Star Trek Lower Decks, because we're right in the middle of Season 2. And what else is there? I mean, Star Trek Discovery, I'm not really too crazy about it. But we'll see what they do. And other than that, I know that they'll probably, hopefully, show some more stuff for Star Trek Picard. Really looking forward to that. This is a minor spoiler, so if you don't want to hear this just for the next couple seconds, I would recommend muting me so you don't hear about any of this. But I heard that for Star Trek Picard Season 2 that they did cast an actress to play the Borg Queen. So the Borg Queen is going to show up again in Picard Season 2, which will be pretty cool. I hope that they bring the Borg back in full force on that show. I think that would be really neat for them to do, especially like with the whole time travel thing. They could totally get around the whole thing that the Borg Collective have died, you know, with the changing time. They could easily bring them back, so I think that would be interesting to see. We'll see what happens with it, but definitely a lot of cool stuff to nerd out about today. But I was actually surprised when I got off work. I went on StarTrek.com expecting all this stuff to be done already and that the panel would be finished and everything, and kind of surprised that they're starting it so late. But I actually appreciate that, because I think that they realize that the majority of their fan base works for a living, so it's nice that they waited until everybody got off of work to do it. Anyway, getting back in a little bit what we got going on here, you can see that we are moving along slowly but surely, getting our circle done. And I'm building this out the same way I've done every other oval or circle. You just take your oval or circle and cut it into 4 pieces, and all you need is one of those corners, and we're just repeating that process 4 times total. You can see right now, especially, I'm just working off the left and right side. I'm not really worried about the front and back at this point. The only thing that we did was basically our starting point for the front and back, which is essentially going to end up our finishing point. So if we've done this right, all 4 sides should intersect at exactly the same point. So we'll kind of see what happens with that as we go, because mistakes can happen. Even when you plan stuff out and take your time with it, no matter how careful you are, you're ultimately inevitable that you will make a mistake here or there. But hopefully we'll be able to do this today without having to retread and rebuild anything, using the methods that I've just inherited over a period of time building these things. Just we do one thing on one side, we're going to do it on the other. Just repeat the same process in the same way while it's fresh on our minds, to eliminate any mistakes. Especially when you're working on a circle or an oval, it's especially easy to make a mistake. This is, again, the only portion of the entire build that we're using any type of blueprint or anything like that. One thing I do want to talk about, because I didn't get a chance to talk about it when I split the sides up, because that was something that I didn't do on the pixel circle generator, was that it didn't actually determine an x-axis point. And I'm sure somebody's going to ask me how I determine where to put a cut line in the middle of those blocks, because more than likely they may not have been even. And the easiest answer for that is, I like the very top bar, whatever that is. Let's say it's an odd number. I round it off to an even number, and I split that in half. That's the easiest way to go about it. And but to get around that, more than likely, if we would have just entered in a 201 for the top number, it would have given us an x-axis point. But I just didn't do it for the tutorial. But if you have any problems with this portion, drop a comment below. I'll see what I can do to help you out. But this doesn't have to be exact 1-for-1 the same width and height. It can be off by 1 or 2, and it's not going to mess up the build at all. We've got plenty of room going around it. Now, you don't want to veer too far out of that. I'd say you want to stay as close to it as you possibly can, just so we don't start building too close to the edge. Because ironically enough, the oval line that our top portion of our hull, like this wall right here, that was originally going to be the circular corridor, and also the top portion of the phaser banks. But as I got more of the upper portion of the ship done and started looking around, I noticed that if I had done that, there would be two problems. One, the phaser banks would be too far out on the lip of the saucer, and not only that, I would have had a lot less room to work with on the edge of the ships as far as having size for rooms. Because that is going to be one thing that's going to be really nice on this build, is that I'm going to have a ton of room to work with, where I won't really be constrained by any of the areas I'm going to be building with an exception of when we get up into the bridge. And I talked a little bit about that in previous episodes, that when I built this thing out, this is a massive ship, but the size of the bridge, for whatever reason, like when I actually rendered it out, it didn't. You would think I would have had basically more room to play with based on the size of it that it looks like from the outside. But it turns out that even the size that we end up on, like you can see like in the beginning of today's episode, the bridge I have, it's not a small bridge, and it's probably the largest one that I've done so far, but it's not so much bigger than the other ones. But long story short, I couldn't go much bigger than that because it would have started messing with the proportions of the ship on the outside. And even where it's at right now, I still feel like maybe it's like a hair too big. But at the end of the day, like there's not really that much I can do about it. So I just decided I'm going to leave it alone. I may maybe at one point come back to it and add layering on the actual hull to make it look smaller than it really is. But I'm not quite sure if I'm going to do that. It's still something that I'm thinking about. But at the same time, I've got a little bit of time to think about that for a while, because I've got a ton of work to do on the Enterprise D. Because in today's episode in the beginning, I really didn't show you guys anything other than just kind of going in through one of the shuttle bays and down the main corridor. And you may or may not have seen what's going to become the mall inside the Enterprise D, as well as an aquarium, which, if you didn't know that, now you do. And now that's a taste of things to come. The Enterprise D did in fact have an aquarium, and I think this is actually kind of cool. I looked this up online when I was actually looking for stuff to do for the interior. But at one point, when they were working on the original scripts for Star Trek The Next Generation, and old school sci-fi fans, this is going to sound familiar, but they were actually going to have a pair of dolphins on board the ship that were on board for navigational purposes. I kid you not, that could actually communicate with the crew and talk. And if that may or may not sound familiar to some of you, if you're 80s babies, and it definitely will, because they pretty much, Sequest DSV pretty much ended up taking that idea. Or maybe they came up with it themselves, but I just think it's kind of ironic that they came up with that concept originally for Star Trek The Next Generation and ended up in Sequest a couple years later. But we won't have any talking dolphins aboard the ship, but we will have an aquarium, which is going to be really cool, and I'm excited to do that because we had something similar to that maybe on my other ships, where we did the terrarium and arbitorium on the Enterprise, but nothing on this scale, which is going to be really neat, and it's going to kind of tie into the mall that I'm building out, so that'll be really cool. Alright, so we're rocking here. I said this part of the build that we're going to be doing today is really going to be taking up the majority of today's episode, but I wanted to make a point to build this out live. Now, one of the things that we are going to do is we are going to repeat this process again below us, and I'll show you the starting point on where to do that at, but I'm not going to do all of that live. And the reason for that is because we're pretty much making the outline at this point. You just have to make sure that the rows that you're doing are directly underneath the top rows. Pretty straightforward and easy. I will get it started, so I'll show you the starting line on the height that it needs to be, but that'll be the one thing that we won't do today, just to save a little bit of time. And then when we come back tomorrow, we'll start working on the floor, and from there we'll start working on the walls and building up our corridors, and eventually we'll have the main one completed, and then we'll start the next level on the corridors, because the main corridors, both the circular and the straightaway ones, there's actually going to be 2 levels to them, and that's going to be pretty cool. I'm really excited to show that off when that's done, because this is going to be the first ship that I've ever attempted to do anything like that, and I've just got the room to do it, so there was really no excuse not to. be honest with you, if I had my way, I would have at least had 3 or 4, but I just didn't have the room to do them. Now, in some sections of the ship, as we get towards the middle, that could very well be a thing where we end up with maybe 3 levels of corridors. But I'm still working on filling in areas of the ship, and I want form to meet function in that regard. And basically, if I decide that I need them, I'll add them in. But I'm not going to do it just for the sake of doing it, where maybe it takes away from different areas on the ship. But building out these corridors first is definitely vital in the build, because when you do this, the wheels start turning, and then you can start anticipating, okay, now I've got a general layout of my ship. Now I know where my empty areas are, where I can do rooms and things, and it'll become a lot easier at that point to start plotting out where things are going to go on your ship. But that's one of the reasons why I do the corridors first, because if you try to do it the other way around, you would end up with a hodgepodge. And from there, it could be very, very, very difficult to try to fix it. And I know from experience, and I'm not saying that I'm somebody that's superior or anything like that, quite the opposite. I've been there and I've done it. My first Enterprise, the 2009 Enterprise, the original one, that's like one of the first videos I ever did. That's how I did it. And it took a really, really, really long time to get it right. So I'll just say that. And it was just a combination of just going back and changing things. No matter what I did, it just didn't come out the way it needed to. It got to the point that I literally had to take the hull off the top portion of the saucer section and completely redo my corridors, because no matter what I did, it just didn't come out right. And then even when I did that, I ended up having to build into rooms and basically rebuild things. It was like a puzzle nightmare trying to figure out how to redo that. So I don't recommend anybody do that, because you're going to get a lot of gray hairs from trying to attempt it, and I wouldn't recommend it for anybody. All right, we are almost done. Actually need to go back instead of forward on this side. That's good. I caught my mistake and fixed it. I'm sure somebody may ask why I bothered to build in the rest of this oval, where eventually the primary shuttle bay is going to go. And the reason I'm doing that is because you got to think that the circular corridor is going to be underneath the shuttle bay. So we still need that template to go off of, because this oval that we have is pretty much our blueprint for our corridors. It's going to tell us where we need to go with a cut with the walls and everything, and it's going to be super helpful in building out the walls. If this is something that you're not really used to doing, and maybe you want to get used to it before we actually really start getting into this, I have a tutorial for beginners on building corridors. If you look through my videos, you'll find it. It's corridors for beginners, and it'll show you the ins and outs on actually doing this based off of a circle, which is maybe a little bit easier than doing an oval. And I go over all this stuff. So if you need to get that refresher, maybe if it's just been a while since you've had a chance to do these, or this is your first chance, I definitely would recommend that, and that's why that video is up, to help people out that maybe need that extra help with it. And I've been trying to make a point to do that as I've been putting out my videos. Pretty much my frequently asked questions, those are the ones I'll do a separate tutorial for to try to help people out. So alright, now we're going to get ready to build out the bottom part. And we're not going to be doing anything fancy, we're literally just building it off the bottom line of the blue lip, or the blue line. You can see I counted it out there just in case you need it. And now it's just literally a matter of repeating that same process going all the way around the ship, or at least the oval. So again, I'm not going to do that again live. I figured I've done that once. That should be good. So if for whatever reason you do have questions, be sure to drop a comment below. I'll try to help you out if I can. But this shouldn't be a problem, because if you get stuck or you feel like you're making a mistake, just look up. Look at your template, and that's where you need to either go left or go right. So as long as you're following your template above you, you're in good shape. And we're literally building one up from the center gray x-axis point, which falls right on the bottom blue line. So this way tomorrow when I come back in, you're going to notice I'll have two ovals, or I'll have the top one that we did today, and then this bottom one will be finished too. And then we'll start working on our floor. And from there, it'll speed up a lot more. But this was definitely necessary to build this out live. So this way, we can really just kind of jump right into it and get going. But we're in pretty good shape, and we're not really going to be hitting up the pixel circle generator too much more at this point, unless we're going to be making a vital change. But yeah, I think that's going to wrap us up today. We've gotten a decent amount done, and I just want to thank you all again for tuning in today's episode. And if you did enjoy this content, please help me out. Hit that like and subscribe button and helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. And new subscribers, don't forget to hit notifications on so you always get notified when those new videos drop. And speaking of new videos, you can always catch my new Minecraft videos dropping Tuesdays through Thursdays. If you have any questions regarding today's episode, or if there's something that you want to see me build either related to the Enterprise D or any other builds, or you just have questions, or just to drop by and say hi, be sure to drop a comment below. And yeah, I think that's going to be it. Just want to thank you all again for tuning in today's episode. Happy Star Trek Day again, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode.